am going to speak off the cuff about Matt, and I'm sure he can tell you a little bit more in depth, but he has worked in quite a number of excellent establishments, both in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. He was also at the Heinz Convention Center, I believe.
I worked with briefly.
Yep. And really, what I love about him is that he's not only the executive chef here at Brandeis, but he's a wonderful instructor and has led phenomenal groups. He's a great speaker, and he's incredibly creative when it comes to food. So I won't say anything else. I will let him speak for himself.
Thank you. I'd just like to say welcome to everyone. We're glad to have you all here back at Brandeis. As Jessica mentioned, I've been the chef for the last 6 or so years, and actually, if you don't know, I've recently been promoted, so I'm still on campus overseeing the culinary operation, but our new executive chef, Ryan, is actually in the kitchen preparing their meals tonight, so we work very closely together, and we're obviously very culinary oriented, so it's a great team to have here. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll keep the program very light, very entertaining, and if there's any questions, feel free to shout them out, raise your hand, give me a question here and there, and we'll just move forward. So I'll just run you through what we had for appetizers, if anyone had any questions. I know that you've got the recipe books there for you. One of the guests, very astute guests, actually called me out and said, your squash tart didn't have any squash, you served beets. So the story with that is actually I did serve beets. We change our menus on a seasonal basis, and last fall we actually had the beet tart. So here I got in the kitchen today and got my knife out and started working away, and I didn't even realize. I said, okay, beet tart. And we changed the menu for this year, and it was squash, so that they surprised me. So I apologize for that. But that was a mixed roasted beet tart with the local chef and a little bit of balsamic reduction.
It was fun with you there.
Yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed it. It was actually one of our good sellers last year. We're changing it up for this coming year. So. We also had the pumpkin arancini, which is like a pumpkin risotto, and it's rolled into a ball, and then it's fried, and then you serve that with a port and blackberry sauce. So I hope you enjoyed that. I actually served that last weekend for a Halloween party. The black and the orange really went well with the nice seasonal ingredient. And then we had the Parmesan pinwheels with the spinach and the tomato pesto, which is made. It's almost like a pesto, but it was made with Marcona almonds and a little bit of roasted tomato and some garlic and some olive oil and some fresh herbs. So hope everybody enjoyed that. Do you have any questions about the recipes or the preparation of any of those dishes? Okay. Well, if you do, holler them out.
All right, actually, I have a quick question about the beet stew.
Yeah.
Do you use a food processor or do you use a knife? Because I noticed there was, some texture to it.
I like the texture, and I use the pulse, just to pulse the nuts, and I take them out and separate those and put them into a bowl, and then I do the tomatoes, and then I like to combine them, because if you put everything in, you get different textures of everything, so if you keep them separate and combine them in a bowl, you can get the textures that you're looking for, so that's the way I did it. So, great. So the format for tonight is where we're talking about holiday entertaining. So all of the meals and all of the recipes that we'll be providing tonight are things that you can prepare ahead of time to make your holiday entertaining a little bit more stress-free. So for example, the arancini that I prepared, that is a dish that you can prepare ahead of time. It freezes perfectly. So if you were to make it this week and bread them all up, pop them in a cookie sheet in the freezer for about 2 hours or so, and then put them in a resealable plastic bag, they'll be good for the holiday time. The pinwheels can be done the same way. They can be made, the night or a couple of days before. Slice them, put them on a cookie sheet, and then, as your guests arrive, pop them in the oven and be ready to go. No preparation needed at the time of your event. Same thing with the tarts. The tarts can be pre-made as well, and then that will allow you to visit with your guests. So that was a thought around how those recipes were prepared. So great. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the first dish of the night, which is the beet salad. So the roasted beet salad, and the reason why I picked beets is it's one of those seasonal vegetables that's locally available, and it's also seasonally applicable to this time as well. So with the beet salad, it is again one of those items that you can prepare ahead of time, so that when your guests arrive, you're not bogged down cooking and everything. I neglected to mention the cheese plate. I'm watching folks munch, so please enjoy the cheese plate. The cheese plate is actually a collection of locally made cheeses and flatbreads. So all of those cheeses are local to Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. So there's a Sage Derby, which is the green vein cheese on the plate. There is a mountain Gouda. There is my favorite, which is the New England aged cheddar. And then the last one is a camembert. So those are the 4 that you have on your plate. So please enjoy those.
Where did you learn to be a chef?
I actually learned on the job. The company that does the food here, Aramark, I started with them when I was a student at Bryant University, and I went as a business major, and I, actually I majored in computers and graduated, but I started working for Aramark when I was on campus, and they offered me a job when I left. They said, I've enjoyed my time so far, and I finished. So it wasn't until recently that I went back to the CIA to get my professional certificates, and I went back for Pro Chef 2 and Pro Chef 3 and got my CCC and CEC. So that was kind of my professional experience. So about the beets are very easy to do. If anyone's ever worked with beets, it's one of those vegetables that all you have to do is pop it right in the oven. I don't know if my camera's working perfect. So with these beets, all we did is literally just wash the beets. We took off the greens and the stem end, wrapped them in some foil and popped them in the oven, and they just sat in the oven until they became fork tender. And they came out looking something like this. The skins do get very dark and kind of pitted, but that's what you're looking for. So all you would do on these is simply just peel that off. You could do it, under running water. Sometimes that's easy. You're just going to peel the skin right off of this. I always try to keep the golden beets and the red beets separate, just because I think they look nice, and if they sit in the same pan, they tend to bleed and they take on the color of their neighbor. So I keep them all separate. So that's all you have to do to prepare the beets.
Excuse me.
Yes?
About how long do you cook them in the oven?
I did them last week, and they took me 2 hours, but I was cooking on 250 degrees, and I did them today at 450 for about 40 minutes or so. So the next part of the assembly is the vinaigrette. So as you see there on your recipe, I have all of the herbs, the shallot, the garlic, the coarse salt, the lemon juice, and the vinegar. I have it all here in a cup, and I'm going to put that in the bottom of my bowl with a tablespoon of that Dijon mustard. What the Dijon mustard is it's emulsifier. So you've heard of people making Caesar dressing with the egg. The egg portion is the emulsifier. It keeps the oil from separating from the vinegar. So that's the purpose of the Dijon mustard. So I always start with whatever you're going to be seasoning with, so your vinegar and your seasonings and your Dijon mustard in the bowl. And then to get the emulsion, you're just going to slowly drizzle in your olive oil. So I have here extra virgin olive oil from Italy, actually. But you could use your favorite olive oil, or if you had another oil, safflower oil or peanut oil or any other oil that you would like. So I'm just going to slowly drizzle this in as I whisk it. And that's going to keep this emulsified and keep the fat droplets mixed in with the vinegar. So that's generally my vinaigrette. You'll notice in the squash tarts we had a tarragon emulsion. We did that exactly the same way. We made a tarragon oil, and then we drizzled that into the vinegar. Any questions on that part of the process?
How long would something like a tarragon oil last?
You want to make sure it stays refrigerated because that's one of those things that can develop some foodborne bacteria if it's sitting out at room temperature, so you want to make sure it's refrigerated. As long as it's refrigerated, it should stay good for a fairly long time. I mean, I've had those in my refrigerator for a month or so, and it's been fine. So that's my vinaigrette. What I did after that is you're just going to marinate your beets. I have them in 2 separate cups, as I was saying before. I have my golden beets in one and my red beets in another. I'm just going to pour a little bit of dressing in there to marinate them. And while those marinate, I'm going to turn to my pistachios and my ricotta salata. Ricotta salata is almost like a ricotta cheese, but it has the texture of feta, for anyone who's familiar with that. I think it goes great on salads. It's a little bit different than feta. It doesn't quite have the same saltiness, but it crumbles the exact same way. And it comes in, a wheel, in a block, and you can just crumble it up. Linda, you can tell Chef Ryan that we're ready for the salads. Thank you. And then my pistachios, I've just shelled those. If you buy the shelled pistachios, you can do them like that. I personally like the ones in the shell because I think they're fresher. You're just going to shell those, lay them out either on a saute pan and slowly saute those just to get them some toasted texture, or you can put them on a cookie sheet in the oven as well. Either way is fine. So let me just grab a plate so I can clear this up for you. Excuse me. Forgot my plate. Sorry about that.
Is there a difference in the taste between the golden beets and the red beets? I don't know if I've ever had golden
Not a
beets.
lot. Not a lot. It's mostly the color.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to use the same bowl I made my vinaigrette in to toss my salad greens. Whenever you toss salad greens, you actually want to dress the bowl, not the greens. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want the greens drenched. You just want them seasoned. So we're going to plate that right on the plate with our beets. And a little bit of our ricotta salata. And toasted pistachio.
So can I ask you, how do you dress the bowl? What do you do with the greens after you put your dressing in the bowl?
Well, with the greens, what I do is I just actually, you could either put the greens in there and then dress along the outside rim, or if you wanted to, you could just put the dressing around it and then put the greens inside. And what you want to do is just toss the greens along the side of the bowl rather than pouring this on top, because that will soak the greens. So you just want a gentle coating on the greens. So there you have it, folks. There's our beet salad with pistachios, crumbled ricotta salata, and toasted pistachios.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, of course, if you want to prepare that as a family-style dish, you could do that and pass it around the table. Or if you were doing it in this case, you could also do it plated. So feel free to enjoy. I'm going to get ready on the next dish.
Yeah, he had a tablet.